primary election season continues. Actually, just tomorrow, we're going to have a couple of states having their primary races. We will, as always, be doing live coverage here at TYT as long as it takes to find out what's happening in those states, including Wisconsin and Minnesota. And week after week, we'll have more and more. And in fact, in just a couple of weeks, we're going to have some pretty important races in Arizona, including a Democratic primary for the Senate. We have two candidates going against each other. We're joined now by one of them. Deedra Abboud joins us on the Damage Report. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. So I have been looking, as I always do, I've been looking over your platform, found it very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the issues that you're running on in this Senate primary?
Well, number one is transparency. So actually you can go to my website and see things, read things about where I stand. But getting money out of politics, Medicare for all, support education, net neutrality, and separation of religion and state.
That is not what some of the other candidates have focused on, so I want to thank you for having a diverse platform. I also want to talk to you a little bit about how you came to politics, because your personal history is slightly different than some of the others. You have been a civil rights attorney, is that correct?
I've been a civil rights and social justice advocate in Arizona for 15 years, and I'm an immigration and estate planning attorney.
So you certainly come at some of these issues from a slightly different perspective than some other people who might be in office right now that are debating some of these topics. Obviously, we have the situation at the border. We have the national debate over the Muslim ban. How is your personal history in terms of your advocacy and your legal work? How has that influenced your position on some of these issues?
Well, because I actually meet people on the ground and hear their stories and have visited the different places in Arizona and spoken to people. So I think that you live in an ivory tower in DC and refuse to have town halls and refuse to have any kind of interaction with normal everyday people. And then you lose focus. And you also lose focus that all these things are interconnected. Like money in politics is going to prevent us from having Medicare for all, because you have to hold the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies accountable.
So you brought up the money. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the money in your race in just a second, but I also want to talk about you contrasted with your Democratic primary opponent, Kyrsten Sinema. So 538 apparently says she has voted with Donald Trump 60.9% of the time, which seems a little bit high for a Democrat. Do you think it's fair to characterize her as more of a conservative Democrat?
Well, she says that she's a centrist, and she actually says that she does become and vote more conservatively because she's trying to poach on the Republican vote, as opposed to going after the Democrats and independents, which make up 2/3 of the population of Arizona. So we actually don't have to be pretzels and pretend that we're something we're not in order to get people to like us and potentially vote for us, when they'll never vote for a D-hat anyway.
Yeah, it certainly seems, especially in the past couple of years. I mean, a lot of these Trump supporters, you can say that you vote Trump's way some of the time, but I got news for them. The Republicans are going to vote with Trump more. That seems like a losing strategy.
Well, the idea has always been that Arizona is a red state, so unless you pretend to be kind of red, you can't win. The problem with that is we're not a red state, we're a purple state that usually doesn't run Democrats, so Republicans win because there's nobody opposing them. That's not the case this year. We actually have the opportunity to be ourselves and tell people who Democrats are, stand on our values, and try that and see if that works for a change, because we've never tried that before.
So I want to ask you something about this. So obviously you and your opponent, Kyrsten Sinema, have slightly different strategies in terms of who you're attempting to appeal to. So let's talk about that electorate in Arizona in this cycle. In terms of voter engagement, registration, what is the situation like in Arizona right now?
Well, registration is up. The majority are independents, a lot in the 18 to 34-year-olds. And in Arizona, the people, basically we have under 50% voter turnout for the primary or for any midterm. And it's really about getting people excited to vote for something and for someone who normally votes, and then exciting people who don't normally vote but are eligible to vote to also vote for someone. It's getting out and talking to the people. It's talking about the issues. It's making them think that their vote matters, not just in numbers, but that they can make a difference by voting for something instead of settling.
And it looks, based on the research I've done, it looks like one of the things they'll be able to vote on is differing strategies in terms of funding campaigns, because you don't take money from corporate or special interests. That's correct?
Correct.
And your opponent has raised $9 million. Is it fair? Is that coming from small dollar donations from individuals?
No, it's coming from large corporations or large donations from all over the country. People who have targeted this race and decided that they want to have Arizona with a D hat, regardless of what the values are. And there are a lot of problems with that. It's beyond just whether or not you have all this money. We need to consider that we are shrinking the middle class. We're abdicating responsibility of the government for social programs, so nonprofits are having to take over. And then people are having to have GoFundMe accounts for their health care. As we continue to make sure that the normal person has no money, then the only people who will be able to afford donating to campaigns are the very rich and corporations. So they're the only ones that will have a say. It's time to demonstrate that you can get out and get people to vote for you by running on your values and refusing to take allegiance to anyone except for human voters.
So let's say August 28th comes, let's say you're successful in your primary, you're running against, it looks like probably Martha McSally based on the polling that I've seen. What do you think that general election would be about? And in a larger sense, what are these midterm elections about in 2018?
I think that they're trying to turn the midterm election or the primary election into a fear election. Vote for me because otherwise the world's going to fall apart, which doesn't work for millennials. They actually want someone that they believe and that they can vote for. In the general, it's going to also be about who are you? Do I believe you? And do you change every time the wind blows in order to make your own career advancement? Authenticity is a big this year, and values are a big this year. And can I believe you? And do you have allegiance to the voters? Do you meet the voters? Are you willing to have town halls? And if the two anointed people in both parties win, we're going to end up with two candidates that nobody can tell the difference between.
And I think we've had enough of that in America. So Deedra, we've had at the bottom of the screen some information about your website where people can find out more about your platform. Before we go though, I do want to just bring up one thing. We noticed when we were doing some research on your campaign, your Twitter header. Can we bring up that graphic for just a second?
Sure.
I just love that. Deedra 2018 for U.S. Senate. That's great. So I want to thank you.
50,000 miles. I've traveled 50,000 miles in Arizona in 16 months.
Wow, well that is certainly a long haul, and at least part of that journey is about to come to a close on August 28th. We'll see how that goes. I want to thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this video from The Damage Report. Please don't forget to like the video and also to subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as soon as new videos become available. To hear even more about both this topic and other issues not being covered nearly enough by the mainstream media, you're going to want to tune in every morning to our full hour-long show. That's at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, available on the TYT Network channel on YouTube TV.